within limited parameters. Yes. But that's, within controlled, limited parameters. It's nothing to do with the generalization. You should look up in Tosfos Yom Tov, in Masechta Kelayim, I don't remember which page, where he discusses this.
Yeah?
Okay, Merech will catch up with us. Hello everybody. Hope you had a nice Yom Tov. Nicer than nice Yom Tov. Inspiring Yom Tov. Back to our routine. We usually speak on the Parsha of the week and make an attempt to interpret some of the aspects of the Parsha in a manner that will become pertinent for us, that we can learn something from it, have an insight. The Parsha is Parshas B BeHaalosschah, as you all know. No, it doesn't have to be a shelf. It could be on the shelf. It's a huge parsha. It's a parsha that where the Jewish people begin their long sojourn in the desert after Matan Torah, when they leave Har Sinai, Har Chorev, and start their journey into the desert, and all kinds of things occur during these trips. They get tired, they get impatient. We will touch upon a couple of things in the Parsha as much as we can. But the beginning of the Parsha is really very bright. The beginning of the Parsha is the instruction that Hashem told Moshe to give to Aaron, how he should kindle the candles of the menorah. And Rashi says, as you all learned, that how is this coming all of a sudden over here? We already finished with building the menorah and lighting the menorah. This is already after the fact, and the Nesim already brought their korbanos. If anybody doesn't follow me, please stop me if you don't understand something. The Nesim already brought their korbanos. All of a sudden we have an instruction to Aaron how to light the menorah. And Rashi explains that what happened here was that the Nisim brought all their korbanos. 12 Nisim, each one had a day in which he brought his korban to inaugurate the Mizbeach. By the way, I'm sure you've noticed that all 12 Nisim brought the identical korbanos. And yet, the Torah is not lazy by telling us just one model korban, and everybody else did the same. It goes through on a day-to-day basis, and it lists the whole korban all over again. This should cause us to reflect, to understand several principles. One is that the Torah is not just telling us a story. The Torah is reliving, it happens in the Torah. The Torah is telling us what happened. It means that this which happened in the Torah, and that's why, since it happened on a daily basis separately, it is in the Torah separately, because that's where it happened.
So many other details that happen in the Torah that they don't understand.
This is not really the topic I wanted to talk about, but it's very important. No, it's very important. The korbanos were brought, physical korbanos, on the physical mizbeach. And from that perspective, the Torah is only telling us what happened. The actual fact of it happened physically. What I'm saying is that the opposite is true. That the true fact of it is that which is contained and represented in the Torah. The Torah contains not only what happened, but why it happened, and what is the secrets behind it. And then it also happened physically. You understand? This is why it's listed out. The Medrash says on this a very interesting inyan, and it goes through every Nasi, and it says that although they brought the identical korbanos, each one had completely different intents and reason for bringing his korbanos, and for design and the design of the korbanos. And the Medrash goes through and explains what Yehuda's intent was, his Sochor and Zvulun, and each one. Intent, reason, right? What he had in mind.
Is the Midrash suggesting that none of them knew what the other one was bringing, and with different intents, they all managed to bring the exact same carbon?
Well, I cannot answer that question directly because maybe they did know, but they certainly didn't try to copy each other. Each one of these korbanos fit their own mission.
But they're all identical. But they're all identical.
I'm sorry? And they're all identical. They're all identical. Right. This is similar to the fact that we all put on the very same tefillin, identical tefillin, and we all have completely different korbanos, all different people. Moshe Rabbeinu put on the same tefillin that you and I are putting on. I don't know if we can fathom and understand the implication of that. Coming back to our parsha, Rashi says that what happened over here is that Aaron witnessed all the Nisim bringing their korbanos. And in effect, as we said just now, it means that all the Nisim had a chance to express themselves, what the Mizbeach meant to them, and expressing all their most important focus and through their korbanos, except for one Shevet. The Shevet Levi, they didn't participate in these korbanos. Not the Shevet, not the Aaron, not the Kohen. As a result of that, Aaron felt a little bit dejected. Chol Shadaite, he felt bad. And then Hashem told Moshe, tell Aaron, you should know that what you do in kindling the lights, the menorah, is greater than what the Nisim did. The Nisim accomplished tremendous things with their korbanos. You, by lighting the menorah, this is why the menorah lighting came right after the korbanos on the Nisim. This is a Rashi right in the beginning of the Pasha. And I want to discuss briefly what this is about. The neiros of the menorah, the candles, the lights of the menorah, are representing the Jewish people. There are 7 lights, the Jewish people, they're all very different, but there are very great generalities in which we all join in, and that's basically divided by 7 because of 7 midos, 7 attributes. There are neshomas that are rooted in chesed, neshomas rooted in gvura, etc., and so forth. And therefore the menorah represents all the neshomas of the entire Jewish people. And Aaron's task in kindling the menorah is to bring out the light that's contained in every neshama and to kindle it, let it shine, to bring it out. And what the Rebbe, as Hashem is saying to Moshe to tell Aaron, that by kindling these neshamas, you bring greater light into the world than through all the korbanos that we're seeing. As a result of that, there's another interesting inyan in this same parsha. This is actually based on a sikha from Rebbe. Generally speaking, not everything, but generally speaking, ideas are based on sikhas from Rebbe. There's a sikha from the Rebbe asks an obvious question in this parsha where it says, when you light the candles, Aaron should be told, when you light the candles, you should light them in a certain way. The wicks should be pointing in one direction or another. And then Pasuk says, and here is what the menorah looked like. Here's how the menorah was made. It was made, miksha, it was made, cut out and chiseled out from one chunk of gold. It wasn't put together from parts and started together. That's what the Pasuk says. The Rebbe says, this seems to be out of place. If you're kindling the menorah, that means that you already assume that the menorah is there. After kindling the menorah, you first tell us what the menorah was. It's out of order. And the Rebbe explains that the point in this pasuk is intended. And the intent is to inform us and to reveal to us and reveal to Aaron that when you light these candles, which means you light the neshama of a Yidden, then the menorah comes fresh. It becomes a new menorah. It's not the old menorah that was made yesterday. After you light the candles, you have a completely brand new menorah. This principle of renovation and rejuvenation we have discussed many times. But many times is never too many to understand the principle intoned, the principle expressed with the word neshama. That from the perspective of the neshama, everything is always created anew. It's never old and never antiquated, never repeated. And I want to explain this principle because it is really germane, it's really significant, and it helps us to understand ourselves. When I came in here, there was a very involved scientific discussion here. Excuse me, based on...
No, not based on it.
Not based on it.
No, this is very involved. Sounds good to me.
Heated. the process that is limited to world is always, so to speak, a two-point process. There's what's called a cause and effect. There is nothing in this world, absolutely not a single thing in the world, that is valuable for its own sake. Everything has a reason behind it. What is this for? This is for this. What is this watch for? To tell time. And why do I need to tell time? Because I need to know when my bus is leaving. There is no intrinsic value in the world to anything. And this is why, because of this process of cause and effect, this is why in the world things do get old. You know, one thing leads to the other, one thing leads to the other, and as it evolves, it does not have its own soul, does not have its own source of life. It's all caused by something else. Say a simple process, a simple daily process. And a person has to pay rent. In order to pay rent, he needs money. In order to get money, he has to go to work. In order to go to work, he has to go to the bus and get on the bus and run and catch the bus and so forth, and get to work and do his thing and come back. And all that is for the sake of being able to pay his rent. So all the work that he has done does not have any of its own inspiration, of its own sense. It's leading to something else. This is true as things stand, so to speak, within the worldly context. But then there is a completely different perspective. The perspective of the neshama. The neshama provides us with a view and a sense of intrinsic value, which means something that is valuable for its own sake, not because of anything else. The one most obvious illustration of this, there is much, and we spoke about it many times in different, the most obvious illustration of that is life itself. Even though, unfortunately, we've come to a world where life itself lost its value and its glitter. But we, having learned a little bit Torah and know what Jewish life is, we know that life has no measure. Excuse me? Evolve? Hebrew?
From the physical point of view, was the first thing you were saying?
World.
Well, in the intrinsic value.
That's me.
סיבה עצמית. אין שום דבר סיבה עצמית. יש לו...
חשיבות עצמית.
יש לו... זה קורה בגלל שזה, וזה קורה בגלל שזה, אבל מצד הנשמה יש לו... how do you say it? סיבה
עצמית. לא, חשיבות עצמית.
חשיבות עצמית. חשיבות עצמית.
זהו.
הוא נמצא בגלל שהוא נמצא.
הדבר עצמי שכאילו כל הגויים בעולם חושבים שכל דבר שעושים זה בגלל עצם הדבר,
כל דבר בשביל איזה סיבה. וגם הסיבה בשביל איזה סיבה אחרת.
זאת אומרת שבן אדם עושה ככה וככה בגלל הסיבה שלו.
כן. והסיבה שלו, גם כן, יש לה סיבה אחרת.
בני
לא,
אדם, בדברים, זה נופל
כל
בגלל
דבר.
שיש פה כוח משיכה. וכל דבר יש לו סיבה. אבל מצד הנשמה, הוא קיים בגלל שהוא נשמה.
בגלל שזה אמת, כן. So I said the one thing that illustrates this point is that life itself has no measure. We know that Torah, halachically, a person who is alive, even though he's totally incapable of doing anything, but he's alive. He's totally incapable of doing anything for whatever reason. Could be he's on the very last moments of his life, Islam, or whatever other reason. This person, in terms of being alive, has no limited life. He is a complete life. And God forbid, to take that life, to shorten that life, is murder. It's full-fledged murder. Because the value, the meaning of life is not what I can accomplish during my life. Every moment, if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, we say, what do we say in davening? Koil haneshomot halukol halaluko. Right? That's the posik in davening. What does this posik say? Koil haneshomot, the entire neshama. Neshama also means breath, breathing. That with every breath that a person takes, he's in effect praising God. At another occasion, we will try to elaborate on this a little bit more, but this is what the Torah tells us. That a person, if not for the fact that he's praising God, he wouldn't be taking a breath. He's taking a breath because he's praising God. This is the Neshama, and this is infinite. Thus, the Neshama has unlimited value, intrinsic, what's called atzmit. And therefore, since it's atzmi, nothing in the Neshama becomes old. Old is possible only something that has a limited value can become old. Something that has limitless value cannot become old. There wasn't a person. You can get tired from music, from certain music. We can get tired from certain foods, even though food is important, necessary. We have to eat. We get tired from certain foods. We have to change it. We can get tired of anything that we experience, but we can't get tired of living. Why? Because living is not a repetition. It's new all the time. It's an intrinsic value. Don't do it for some other reason. It is the essence. This is why the Torah says that an Aaron kindles the lights of the menorah, whereby he is actually kindling the neshama. What happens then? Then becomes a new menorah. That's why the Torah then first tells us, here's what the menorah looked like. Here's what the menorah was made. After the lighting. Tell him in Hebrew, quick.
נשם חיים, אין לו, לא יכול להגיד שיש לו ערך מסוים, יש לו ערך אינסוף, אז הוא לא יכול להיות ישן, דבר שאתה יכול להגיד שיש פה ערך, אז הוא יכול להיות ישן, בגלל זה האוכל שלך, פתאום אתה נמאס לך לאכול את זה, או שנמאס לך לשמוע מוזיקה כזאת, או אבל חיים, אף פעם לא יכול, אף פעם זה לא מפסיק להיות, אף פעם זה לא נהיה ישן. למה? בגלל שאין לו ערך, אתה לא יכול להגיד שיש בו ערך כזה וכזה. הוא אין סוף ערך, כאילו, תמיד הוא לא יכול להיות ישן.
Rejuvenate, it's new. It's new all the time.
בקיצור, בגלל זה, העבודה של אהרון, שזה היה להדליק את המנורה, את הנשמות, את משהו שאין בו ערך, הוא עבודה קודם כל הוא היה יותר גדול מהקורבנות, ושנית כל בגלל זה כתוב ישר אחרי זה, אחרי שמדובר על הדלקת נרות של אהרון עם המנורה, מדובר על בניית המנורה, וככה הוא היה נראה, וככה בגלל
ההדלקה עושה מנורה חדשה. Okay, yes, okay. Questions?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. I would think you would be more fluent in Hebrew than stumbling like this, but you're doing fine.
I don't really know Hebrew that well.
Oh, really? Okay, yes.
You said everything has a purpose in terms of that it's serving something else, as opposed to the Shama where it's not, it doesn't need to be serving another end.
That's right.
I know you said that everything ages, all material objects, but there's one element on Earth that deteriorates far less than any others, and that is gold. And you can leave gold under the ocean for 5,000 years, pick it up, dust it off, and it's exactly the same as before. Is there a connection between that and why gold is used in the North?
Yes. Well, I'll tell you. This phenomenon, we spoke about this also regarding, in general, the rejuvenation of the world. Because as old as the world becomes, it doesn't really become old. It's fresh, it's new all the time. And when we wake up, and I speak about this all the time, when we wake up in the morning, we greet a new world, not an old world. When the sun rises in the morning, it's a new miracle. And we point out, Chassidus points it out, and that's based on a pasuk in Tehillim, that the sun, with all the thousands of years of giving off light, doesn't diminish. It seems to rejuvenate. As a matter of fact, we're afraid now of global warming. Instead of the sun diminishing in power, it becomes stronger. There is no reduction in power in the world. The reason for that is this is not inherent in the world. This is attesting to the fact that Hashem creates the world all the time, and that's why it doesn't get old, because Hashem creates the world from ayin, rejuvenates and completes. This is a power that is not contained within the sun to rejuvenate itself. This is the power that comes from outside of the sun, from Hashem directly. Because Hashem wants the sun to be in a certain way, and this is how it is. In other words, this is one of the great miracles in the world that show us clearly Hashem's hand in the world. That's we say in davening every Shabbos, Hashamayim Misaprin Kvoit Kein, that the heavens tell us the glory of the Hashem. How do we see it in the heavens? Because we see the fact that it is as fresh and new all the time. The fact that all the orbits don't change. The day can be calculated beyond the split second. The calendar that we are using today has been pre-calculated for us 2,000 years ago. This is not natural. This is because that's how Hashem set it up. It's not a normal, a limited quality. As far as gold is concerned, in a similar inyan, the Gemara says Lahoya ha'olam roi lihishtamish b'zohar. The world actually was not fit for the gold quality, to be using gold. Gold, in the world, everything has to change, has to corrode. In some way, it has to diminish in its glitter and its purity. It has to. Then we could say this is part of the natural world. Gold, because it doesn't have that quality. So therefore, gold is really is a quality that is actually beyond worldly. This is why gold actually was created, the Gemara says, for the Beis Hamikdash. Only for the Beis Hamikdash. Except because it needs to be created for the Beis Hamikdash, that's why it expands itself, and we also have it outside. But essentially, gold is really not what's called doesn't fall under the parameters of worldly limits because of this unchanging quality. The other thing that I wanted to discuss in today's parsha is the Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni, normally we talk about Pesach Sheni on Pesach Sheni. But since it's also in this parsha, and the particular sikha that I'm relating to, referring to, is a sikha that was said on Pashas BeHaalosschah rather than on Pesach Sheni. So therefore, I want to talk about it in Pashas BeHaalosschah. You all know what Pesach Sheni is. Basically, there's a Korban Pesach that every Yid had to bring a Korban Pesach the day of Erev Pesach. And then there are exceptions, people who were not able to bring that Korban because of circumstances. They were not pure, they were not clean, they were not toher, they were at a distance, and so forth. So they requested from Hashem, they requested from Moshe, why should we miss out? And then Hashem gave this second opportunity for them to bring the Korban Pesach the next month, in the month of Iyar. And here there was a question. Normally, every Yid, besides the Korban Pesach, every Yom Tov, like Shavuos is a Yom Tov, it's called the Regel. You know, Yom Tov are called the Regolim, Sholosh Regolim. Pesach is called the Regel, Shavuos is called the Regel, Sukkot is called the Regel. Why is it called Regel? Regel means foot.
And walk up to Yeshua.
Three, like the three pilgrimages.
Because these are the 3 times in the year that every Yid is essentially obligated to go up to Yerushalayim in the Beis Hamikdash. And it's called Regel because ultimately they have to walk by foot. Not the whole distance from all the way from Yam Kineres, but the rest, the Har HaBayis, you can only walk by foot. And that's why it's called Regel. When Eden came on these trips in the Beis Hamikdash and Yom Tov, they had various obligations to bring along korbanos. Essentially, there were 2 types of korbanos that they brought. They all brought what's called eilas re'iyah, a korban oila for being for having the opportunity and the privilege of being seen and see the Beis Hamikdash, called the Eilos Re'iyah, and also Shalmei Chagiga. You have to bring a Korban Shlomim to celebrate the Yom Tov. I don't know, are you familiar with this terminology? Shalomim and Oila. Very briefly, the difference is Korban Oila is a Korban that gets completely consumed on the Mizbeach. Totally. Korban Shlomim, on the other hand, is just the opposite. Only certain parts go on the Mizbeach, the inside, the fat, and the rest of the behema is eaten by the owner, by the one who brings it. And the Eden used to celebrate Yom Tov around this Korban Shlom. This is what the big Suda was when they used to eat these Korbanos. It's called Shalmei Chagiga. So Pesach and Sukkot, they had the opportunity to satisfy their obligation. They had 7 days during which to bring these korbanos. On Shavuos, they only had 1 day. We have Shavuos 2 days. That's because we're in Golus. But Shavuos actually is 1 day, and therefore it was impossible for all Yidden to bring their korbanos on Shavuos, on the Yom Tov, on the day itself. As a result of that, we have what's called the Mei Tashlumin, days of fulfilling, of paying up. These are the days following Shavuos. Just as Pesach, we have 7 days during which to bring the korban. Shavuos also we have 7 days to bring the korban. As a matter of fact, this is the reason that today we didn't say Tachnun. Today is Yud Beis Sivan, which is the 7th day after the first day of Shavuos, because these are all the days till today were Oimei Tashlumin, during which the korbanos were still being brought. Tomorrow, I hate to tell you, you're going to have to start taking Tachnun already. So now the question is that we have Tashlumin, this paying up of a korban that we have by every Yom Tov. But then you pay up the korban immediately. You missed it the first day, you do the second day, the next day, until the 7 days. Korban Pesach, we did the Tashlumin, the paying up of the korban, is not immediately after. You do it the next month, a month after. And the question is, what's the difference? Why? Obviously, this union of Tashlumim, Korban Pesach, has a different implication than Tashlumim of other Korbanos. And for this, the explanation is, like I'm from Tzemach Tzedek, that there's a principal difference between the Korban Pesach that's brought out of Pesach in Nisan, and Korban Pesach that's brought in Iyar. The Korban Pesach was brought in Nisan. In Nisan, this was the time when Yidden, when we first left Egypt, when we first left Mitzrayim. The first moment of leaving Mitzrayim, the emphasis there was the running away from Mitzrayim, because Eden were attached to Egyptian culture, the impurities of Egypt, the impurities of the world, and you have to break away from it and bring a korban to Hashem. This is why it's a korban. The Torah says you should break away from the Avodah Zarah of Mitzrayim, because Mitzrayim worship the sheep. So break away from the Avodah Zarah of Mitzrayim and bring it as a korban to Hashem. This is essentially the union of Korban Pesach. In other words, this is a process, what's called Sur meira v'asei toiv. Sur meira, abstain from evil. And you have the emphasis is on abstaining from evil because we are still steeped and attached to the evil, and therefore we have to actually make an effort to break away from it. And instead, do the good. This is why on this Korban Pesach, we are very strict that we have to get rid of all the chometz before we bring the Korban. And it has to be purely matzah. And we already discussed chometz represents the Yetzer Hara, that which draws a person into the world. So he says you have to do away with the chometz. It's the first thing. And you have to clean out the chometz from your whole house, not to have anything to do with chometz. Then you can bring the korban. Pesach Sheni has completely different rules. Pesach Sheni, you don't have to clean your house from chometz. You can have chometz in your house while you're eating the korban. Except together with the korban, you don't need chometz. But otherwise, you don't have to get rid of the chometz. Which means that the emphasis on Pesach Sheni is not on the sur meira, on the abstaining of the evil, of breaking away from evil, but rather the emphasis is on increasing good deeds, increasing good. The principle in this is, again, because we are talking now in the second month. The first month, when Eden first broke away from Mitzrayim, this was a breakaway. They had to break away from Mitzrayim. So therefore, they had to make an emphasis on Sur Meira. The second month, they already rose to a higher madrega, to a higher level. And there the evil was not so enticing anymore, did not have it in its clutches. And they can come directly to Asay Toiv, to doing the positive in it, doing the good. This is why it's the next month, because Nisan and Iyar, Nisan represents the Nisim, the breaking away from Mitzrayim, and Iyar, this is the Aveda of Tzaddikim already, when Eden are free from Mitzrayim and they're going towards Matan Torah and purifying themselves. Again, bringing this back to ourselves and reflecting on this in our own avoid, in our own daily effort. Just as we explained before about the neshama, that the neshama rejuvenates all the time. Neshama doesn't get all the tired. The same thing we have to understand regarding our daily effort and daily avodah. We are involved in doing daily, almost a routine. We get up in the morning, we say Moidani, we wash Negovasar, we go to mikveh, we daven, we learn. It seems that we are simply repeating the same activity over and over and over again. And the only thing that we can kind of hope for is, since I learned yesterday and today I'm going to come and learn again, maybe today I will know more than I know yesterday. And the day after I'll know even more than I know today. In other words, it's all a cumulative knowledge that I'm going to gain. But from that perspective, it means that essentially I'm really repeating the same I did, but except I'm learning the next piece of Gemara and the next piece of Gemara. There isn't anything that is happening that is fundamentally different. So for this, we have the Pesach Sheni. that tells us that this is not at all true. That if you have a Pesach Rishon, the first Pesach, and then you have Pesach Sheni, it's not a repetition of the Pesach Rishon. It's in a different month, and it's a completely different status. Different status. It has a different power. Why is that? The reason for that, where we get this power, we get it directly from the neshama. This is the important thing that I'd like to kind of convey and get and bring home, that we should understand. That even though we seem to be learning and struggling every day with another word, another piece of Gemara, you have to understand the seichel that we employ to understand the piece of Gemara, to understand Rashi, to understand the Chumash, that seichel is not a technical power. The seichel is actually a window. That seichel is representative of our neshama, how the neshama understands things. And the more we learn, the more, like Aaron kindles the neshama becomes more revealed. And all of a sudden we turn around and things that yesterday we couldn't begin to understand, and we couldn't even hope and imagine that we'll ever understand, all of a sudden, not only do we understand them, I don't understand how I didn't understand. There's a complete turnover. This is what happens in the real growth of a human being. It isn't just a cumulative, that he is a quantitative growth. It's a complete turnover. And this happens all the time. We don't recognize this all the time. We recognize it over a period of time. But it happens all the time. To illustrate this point, there's a story which again I may have mentioned in the past. There's a story where the Alter Rebbe was traveling in various cities and towns. This was during the time of the big machlokes, that there was a big argument, machlokes, about Chassidus, and there was a lot of opposition to Chassidus. The Alter Rebbe went around and he tried to convince people about that Chassidus is a kosher thing. Not only a kosher, but it's a good thing. And the way things were arranged in those years, in those days, because all the people there were all great scholars. So the first thing he had to show that he's a scholar in Torah, that he knows Torah. Then he can debate on Chassidus. So what they used to do is they would gather all the scholars in the big synagogue, in a big shul, and the Alter Rebbe would get up and would say a drosha, whatever it is. He would ask him questions to prove that he knows how to learn. There was this town, this Yiddish club, which was a huge city with a lot of scholars. Alter Rebbe came into this medrash, and it was a big place and packed. And they were all ready to ask him kashas, to ask him questions in learning. Alter Rebbe looked around and he said the following. He said, I see that there is, Baruch Hashem, a huge crowd here of great scholars. And you all have very profound questions to ask. In the constraints of time, it's impossible for everyone to voice their question and for me to answer this question. Therefore, I will look for an alternative way of giving you the answer. What is the alternative way? I will sing a nigun. And And the Alter Rebbe started singing his niggin. And as he was singing this niggin, everyone was taken in by the niggin. And they realized how their questions lifted, disappeared. They didn't have the difficulty anymore. From that gathering, there were many chassidim, they became big chassidim, and they related that they remembered this experience. It was a marvelous experience. All of a sudden, there's no kash. It's clear. How did it become clear? He didn't debate them. He didn't give them the answers to their questions. The answer is that every question, every difficulty in understanding is due to the fact that I have a limited perception. I have a limited view. Because I don't see things the way my neshama sees it. I see it on a lower level. Just like when a person stands on the bottom of a mountain, he sees only a certain distance. He makes one step up, and all of a sudden he sees a mile further. Takes 2 steps up, he sees 2 miles further. He climbs up on the mountain, all of a sudden there are no obstacles, and he sees the whole world. So the niggin was able to lift them out of their limits, lift them out of their constraints, and therefore they were able, from that moment, to see the Torah from a much higher and purer perspective. And therefore they had no questions, no questions. Huh? The Al-Babas, the Alter Rebbe Snake. So the point, how it pertains to us, you have to understand. As much as we struggle, even though the next day we have to struggle, every time that you struggle and every time that you break through and you get to understand something, you have to understand that this is removing another obstacle from bringing out the truth of our own soul. And therefore, this is the facilitator. This actually brings about real growth, not what we call quantitative growth, but qualitative growth. Just as we see a child, an infant, is totally incapable, and look around, a while later you say, oh, all of a sudden this kid is so smart, he talks, runs. What happened over here? Did he learn it all in such a short time? Yes, he learned it all, but the most important part is that his neshama came forth, started functioning, was revealed. This is the same thing happens by a person, by an adult, and hopefully it continues to happen throughout one's lifetime. A person must never stop growing. We may become old physically or older physically, but spiritually, and we don't become old. Like yet, we're young all the time. Those who remember, I don't know if any of you, probably not, but those of us who were around the Rebbe for many years, we know that the Rebbe was always the youngest person in the entire 770. He always had new ideas. He was never satisfied with what was accomplished, and he never was tired, so to speak, of going forward and figuring out and breaking through new boundaries, new limits. All the time something new. Because the neshama does not get old. The neshama doesn't get tired. And our job is to learn, and through this learning and davening and doing mitzvahs, to permit and allow, to remove the obstacles that don't allow us, our neshama, to shine through and let the neshama shine through. This is the job that Aaron HaKohen was accomplishing. As a result, the menorah was always shining because it was always new. The Rebbe should help each one of us that we should always feel rejuvenated. Every morning, for sure, we should face the day as a new day and bring all the enthusiasm and all the excitement of a new day as if it was never been before. Because in fact, if one looks at it and applies his intelligence, he sees that this is literally a new creation. And with this approach, we will be able to bring out the best and the most profound, the most powerful of our koiches, of our abilities, of our intellect, and our emotion, and thereby facilitate, bring about our spiritual growth. The spiritual growth, this is the real growth of the human being. We can be bigger scholars, we can be smaller scholars, but we have to be true, full-fledged human beings, full-fledged Yidden. We have to know what Torah is, what Hashem is. We have to know what we are, what our lives are about, what we aspire for. These things we have to know clearly. With full force, nothing can stop us. This is what we accomplish by learning Torah on a daily basis. So that when we pursue in our lives, it's not just, oh, I know I better do it. No, I know what I'm doing. I really want it. This is the real thing. This is not just sur mira, I'm afraid I'm going to fall back. No, it's asay toiv. I'm pursuing and want to build it. And this is how the Rebbe helps that we're successful here in yeshiva, successful beyond the yeshiva, successful throughout our lives. Yes, sir.
Aaron's particular avoider, let me just clarify, it was to rejuvenate the chayes in the world with the menorah?
Rejuvenate the chayes in the Jew, which is the same as rejuvenating the chayes in the world, because the chayes in the world comes through the Jew. Hatzlocha Rabba. You over my daughter? This young woman.
Yes.
Together with Moshe.
Yeah, very nice over there.
Yeah, they like you guys very much.
It was all Moshe. He's very likable. It was all Moshe. He was very likable.